I ended up going back in, fully intending to go back to my job and doing what I was supposed to be doing, but I just walked straight to the time clock, clocked out, and went to my immediate assistant manager and handed him my time badge and said I was done. And I thought that I would have a nervous breakdown by the time I got home, and I didn't. I mean, on the way out to my car, I wanted to dance, I was so excited.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, Angie Scott and Barb Carey.
Hey everyone, Angie Scott here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. Today we feature Crystal River kayak angler and guide Jacinda Rose. Jacinda is a highly respected angler in that area, and when I was down that way a few months ago, multiple people suggested I reach out to her and have her on the show. So we met up for lunch at an awesome restaurant right on the river called Peck's. You might recall the episode I did with Captain Stacy Horak while we were out on the boat actually catching fish and doing a podcast interview. Well, we had the restaurant grill up our catch from that morning while I chatted with Jacinda. It was perfect. This was Jacinda's first ever podcast, and I'm super honored. She's a great storyteller and tells several riveting stories throughout the episode, so I think you're really going to enjoy it. Before we get into that, I want to tell you something super exciting that's happening this week. Fans of bass fishing know that this week is the Big Bassmaster Classic on Lake Gunnersville, and the expo is taking place in Birmingham. I'll be down there getting in on all the action like I was last year when it was on the Tennessee River in Knoxville. My friends at Yamaha reached out and asked if I'd be interested in taking part of their Industry Leaders speaking series being held at their booth during the expo to talk about women in fishing. I'm proud to say I'll be kicking the whole thing off on Friday at 12:30. Now, this is going to be videoed and live streamed on their channels, as well as projected on their media wall and rebroadcast throughout the expo. I'm in really great company because other guests include the likes of Clay Dyer, Brandon Polinick, and Mike Iaconelli, among others. So, of course, I asked them if we could record this as a live podcast episode, and they loved the idea. So, in lieu of our normal 5-Minute Friday, our live podcast will be on our Facebook page, and then the audio version will be on Apple Podcasts and Waypoint TV and all our other podcast platforms. If you're available, be sure and try and catch the Facebook Live on Friday at 12:30 Central Time on the Woman Angler and Adventurer Facebook page. Even better, if you're going to be at the expo, stop by the Yamaha booth. It's number 2507 and be a part of the live audience. I'll be welcoming back our guests from episode 15, Master Captain Cheryl Smith. We have an exciting announcement to make and something that I think is really going to help women in the fishing industry, so stay tuned. All right, let's get into my conversation with the talented Jacinda Rose. Jacinda Rose to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast.
Thank you.
Can you tell the listeners a little bit about where we're at right now?
We are in Ozello, which is a part of Crystal River. It's actually, in my opinion, the best place to fish in the area. It's got every bit of diversity you could think of, so no need to travel way down south or way up north. Everything is right here.
Yep.
So
I got to fish it a little bit this morning, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Well, you were in a boat, so you didn't get to go to all the places that I get to go to in my kayak, because there's all these little nooks and crannies, and I mean, it's been compared to 10,000 Islands by a friend of mine. He calls it 5,000 Islands.
Okay.
So
I got to fish 10,000 Islands last month.
Uh-huh.
And we just released our podcast episode. I don't know if you happen to see it if you're looking at our website, but it came out yesterday, and it was stranded on Jewel Key, which is one of the 10,000 islands. And our captain, unfortunately, his boat got away from us.
Oh, no.
And we were beached, and there's a porta-john on Jewel Key, so we were going to take a bathroom break and eat some lunch. And he beached the boat, put the power pole down. We all got off the boat. The boat floated away, basically.
Oh, wow.
He took off after it.
I was going to say who swam off after it.
The captain did. He was the only one that kept his PFD on. We had all taken ours off.
Right.
And luckily he had it on because I don't think he would have made it without it. He swam out quite a ways trying to get that boat. The wind was really strong, so he ended up swimming back. Took him forever to get back. He was super winded. He had a waterproof cell phone that had one little bar of service, and he called his neighbor. His neighbor happened to be home, came out and got us and took us out to the boat. So it's kind of crazy. But you mentioned 10,000 islands. That, that's a pretty...
Well, that just adds to the adventure. Because now look at the story you have to tell.
We had a whole podcast episode about it,
Right.
And everybody survived. His boat was fine. So, it all worked out. But
awesome.
Yeah. So kayak fishing in this area, that sounds pretty amazing.
It is. There's so many places to go that even, Ozello has become a very popular place. We have a lot of people come fishing here now, especially since, down south you can't keep any fish right now in a lot of areas, so they're coming up here because they know they can keep those fish here. But it doesn't matter how many people are out here, you can still find a spot where nobody else is and you'll still catch fish, so... It's awesome. I love it.
Awesome.
Tranquility.
And just to set the scene for everybody, we're actually at a restaurant on the river.
It's called Peck's.
Peck's.
Peck's Old Port Cove.
We're told to have really good food here, and we actually brought our fresh redfish. They're going to grill it up for us, so it's going to be awesome.
Holly didn't go outside. Do you guys, so there's two fillets, you want us to easier to cut it up? Or do you guys just want to fillet?
We have no preference. However,
It just would take longer if you just...
however the chef wants to do it, it's fine with us.
We've never done this, so
Okay.
this is new to us.
So we get coleslaw and hush puppies and your french fries as your side, and then the fish that you guys...
Perfect.
Okay?
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Good deal. So, I noticed you're wearing a Salt Strong shirt.
Yeah, that's my family. That's my fishing family.
Okay.
It's two guys out of, I think they were out of the Tampa area or Winter Haven. I can't even remember. But they started it to help teach people how to fish. And it's just an awesome community. It's where I get the most support from. I've made a lot of friends. Have a lot of great times. We're actually going to Marco Island this weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a Salt Strong Fishing Club on Facebook, and then there's the Salt Strong Insiders Club. It's a paid membership, and I'm part of that. And we have 4 different annual meetups in different parts of the state, and this weekend is Marco Island, so I'm really excited to go down there again.
Well, I wish that. So I'm an Insider Club member.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm up in Nashville, so I'm not as connected as I would be if I was down here on a regular basis.
I joined Salt Strong on Facebook right after they started. I think they had maybe started a few months before I joined. And I'm like this little small town girl that I just love to fish. And that was the first actual fishing community I found online. And I wouldn't post anything for the longest time, no pictures of me, because I don't like pictures of myself. And one of my friends on there is like, look, they're just going to be looking at the fish. Don't worry about you. I'm like, okay. And I know that's not even true for a lot of people, but I went with it, and I started posting my catches and stuff like that. And they did the online tournament, and I won a GoPro.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congrats.
And then I gave it away because I couldn't figure out how to use it.
They are complicated. Was it like a Hero 7? Do you remember?
Back then it was just the 4.
Oh, it was a while back.
Which,
okay.
yeah, it's been a few years. But yeah, I'm not your technical person. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm actually really simple. I keep everything as simple as I can. When people start talking about all the technical stuff in fishing, the lures and ways they rig things up, and it just starts getting overwhelming to me, and I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? I just use a hook. What?
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be complicated, is the thing.
Right.
You can have success, and I think that's a big barrier to people getting into the sport, because they walk into a store and they see all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa.
Even with Salt Strong, they do the insider membership. You got all those courses. I've watched a lot of them, but a lot of them I just end up confused. It's like I can't remember it once I get out on the water, and I don't want to have to listen to it on the water.
Right.
So, I've learned a ton, but there's also things that's, I just go back to what I know because it works for me.
Yeah, and
So,
you got to do what works and what's comfortable for you and what's going to keep you going out there.
which are the big fish.
Yeah. There's a lot of big fish out here in the Crystal River.
Yeah, there is.
Well, before we get off the Salt Strong thing, which I've had Joe on the show twice.
Yeah.
Once, so this show started out as a show called It Pays to Fish, and my idea was I was going to interview people who make a living in the fishing industry, and not just guides and your typical whatever you think of, but kind of branch out into. We had Casey Scott, who draws all the artwork for Hook Gear, and we had Barb Carey, who's now my co-host, who heads up a group up in Wisconsin called Wisconsin Women Fish, and then of course I had Joe from Salt Strong, and he was actually the last guest I had before I transitioned it into the Woman Angler and Adventurer.
He scared Joe away.
I dropped a bomb on Joe because I'd already made that decision I was going to do it. So I told him he was kind of my inspiration for doing it, partially because they already have a great podcast and they interview a lot of people from all different walks of the fishing industry.
Right.
And I was like, there's not really one that's just focused on women and inspiring women and sharing their stories, and so that's when I decided. So Joe was the last one, but then we had him on again because we did a series about taking kids fishing and the importance of getting kids out there, and they had recently done a short series of episodes on the same thing. So I had him on to talk about what he learned through their guests that they had on and stuff. It was really cool.
Joe is awesome. He's inspired me. He's always had my back. If I have, he has a habit of, like, when he reaches out to me for something, it's always on one of those days where I'm having a bad day, and it's like he knows that, so he'll call and he'll just say one or two little things just to make me feel better. He's just a very caring, wonderful guy.
Yeah, I've read his book like 3 times.
Yeah,
it's really good. Inspiration, like in the morning, he talks about the miracle morning in his book, so I've implemented that in my life. I haven't done it as consistently as I'd like to, but so I'd take 20 minutes to read every morning, and ironically, like I would read his book. So,
well, it's a great book.
Yeah, I recommend it. It's called Fishing for Happiness, and the book is not about fishing.
No,
pretty much not whatsoever.
No,
but
it's about happiness. It's about finding your own happiness.
Yep. So I highly recommend. I'll put a link to that in the show notes for this episode.
Well, one of the things. With me, I'm just starting off as a guide. I feel like a lot of people have more confidence in me than I do, but I know that I know how to catch fish.
I've heard nothing but amazing things, which is why I wanted to have you on the podcast. So, how long have you been? Okay, but let's step back. How did you get into it?
Into fishing? Let's see. In the end of 2006, I was dating a guy who had a son who was 11 or 12 years old, and it was in October. It was like 19 degrees out, and they were going to go fishing, and he always fished in the middle of the night. So I was like, well, I want to go fishing. I hadn't been fishing since I was, little, really. I lived in Michigan. I did some freshwater fishing, but I swear I only ever remember catching turtles. I do not remember catching a fish when I was little. But so I said that I wanted to go, so they bundled me up, and we went fishing. We didn't catch a darn thing but colds. But after that, we started going almost every weekend, fishing off of land, off the pier, the Ozello Causeway, or down in Bayport by, what is it called? I told you that already.
I can't help you because I don't remember.
But I mean, we fished a lot, and it was always in the middle of the night, and I loved it, but I hated it because we never caught anything in the middle of the night. And then he would want to leave by like 11 o'clock in the morning when the fish were biting. I'm like, I don't get this. Why don't we just come out before the sun comes up, and then we can fish throughout the day? And he's like, well, I don't do that. Well, I finally got him to start doing that. And so we fished usually before the sun came up until the sun went down. Whether it be off land, and then out of the canoe, and then we graduated to the kayaks. But he taught me the old school. Or he calls it the old salt. He told me I'm old salt, and that to me is a huge compliment.
Yeah.
I love that. But we just started fishing almost every weekend, and he taught me everything that he knew, everything his grandfather taught him and his dad. And,
so important to have a mentor like that.
Well, it's great because, we are still friends. We dated for like 10 years. We are still friends, and on occasion we still get to fish together. But we fished together about a month ago, and the poor guy got skunked. And I'm like, he fishes for food, I fish for fun. And he doesn't understand that either. But I'm like, do you want me to keep you a fish?
You're right.
And so I kept a fish for him so he could take one home. Kind of felt bad, but
How did you make the transition from that to getting into guiding?
Well, when he and I split up, it was all I could do to make myself go out on the water by myself. I was terrified, really, because we had been through so many different situations.
Yeah, there's
we got
a lot
caught
that can happen.
in a gust front up in Yankeetown that flipped him. I barely made it back to the shore, but he insisted on checking the radar, so he didn't make it back to shore. Women's intuition,
Right.
I knew it was time to go.
Yeah.
I wasn't hanging out. But, so stuff like that had me very nervous, plus not knowing if I, could do it on my own. Can I go out there and find fish on my own? Because I relied so much on him. Took for granted that he was always going to be there, and I didn't really need to learn everything.
Right.
But I absolutely love fishing, so I just made myself do it. It took me about 2 months. So I started going out, and Yankeetown and Ozello have always been my favorite places, so that's where I would go. And then Ozello it's kind of like my heart, so this is where I am almost every time now. And I had a lot of people tell me that I should just start guiding, my Salt Strong friends and everybody. You really do a great job, you're always catching fish, blah, 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 But I was terrified. So for like the last year, I've had people telling me that I should do it, but I've been too afraid to, I don't want to fail. Who wants
Right.
that? That's like my biggest fear, So about 2 months ago, I just decided, I did my little Facebook page and threw it out there so that I couldn't back down.
Right.
And, that's how.
You got to do it scared.
Yeah.
So this is very new to you.
Yeah.
Which is cool, because I don't think we've had anyone on this show who's kind of in that beginning stages. We've have the people that have been doing it for years and years and years. So this is like really interesting to talk to you in this.
Well, that's
time
why I said
period.
I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I haven't been.
I think that's awesome. So that 2 months it took you to get comfortable, like going out on your own. How did you get to that point? Like, did you have a strategy to get yourself comfortable, or did you just kind of do it little by little?
I had to throw myself into it. I just one morning I'm like, I absolutely love fishing. That's when I have, and I'm sure most fishermen feel the same as I do. That's where they find their peace. They're happy. That's what they enjoy doing. That's what they want to do. And so I said, I can either sit home, be miserable, and wish I was fishing, or I can go. And so I just made myself go. I just didn't go very far. Right. I would stay close to the launch, so just in case. And after a while, I started venturing a little further. Now it's people really just can't keep up with me. For being so little, I've got really great stamina to be paddling out there. So,
what kind of kayak do you fish out of?
Kaku Wahoo.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually work for that company now too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What do you do for them?
He calls me the customer service manager.
Okay.
I do his job while he plays around, coming up with the new ideas for the new boats and stuff like that. So
cool.
Yeah,
that must be fun.
It is. It's kind of crazy how it happened. I used to work for Walmart. Mm-hmm. I worked there for 15 and a half years, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. The last 5 years, they started all their changes and the management. I'm good at what I do. So sometimes I have to be taught, especially when it's technology. You get all the new little handheld things, this, that, and the other. And I just didn't feel like I was being taught, so I couldn't work to my best ability, blah, 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 blah. And it got to the point where I was absolutely, totally miserable every day going in there. And I just hated it, And then one day I was standing in there and kind of got sick of it. I had it up to here, and I actually took a break. I went out to my car and I texted both my daughters. I said, I need y'all to pray for me because I want to leave. I want to go home and I don't want to come back. And so, they gave me their little pep talks, and love my daughters. You guys have got to try these.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll try. I don't eat a lot of crab, but I will try.
Oh my gosh.
There's it's hard to tell.
It's absolutely delicious.
Sure. Can I get lime with the next one?
Yes. Are you okay on yours?
I'll take another.
Really tell. You want a lime?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
All right, so we took a little break because our food got here, and we figured instead of chewing and trying to talk at the same time, we thought we'd take a little break. But Jacinda was in the middle of a really awesome story about kind of getting to the end of her rope with her job situation at Walmart, and you went out to the car, texted your daughters.
Yeah, I text both my daughters, in the group chat, and I asked for prayers because I wanted to go home. I ended up going back in, fully intending to go back to my job and doing what I was supposed to be doing, but I just walked straight to the time clock, clocked out, and went to my immediate assistant manager, handed him my time badge, and said I was done. And I thought that I would have a nervous breakdown by the time I got home, and I didn't. I mean, on the way out to my car, I wanted to dance, I was so excited.
Like a weight's been lifted off your shoulders,
right.
I'm sure.
But the bad part about it was, I barely had any money in the bank. I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't really plan on quitting my job, so I didn't have another one lined up or anything. So I just went fishing. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go fishing. So about a week later, I was on the water, and I got a message from Kevin Hawkins with Kayaks, and he offered me a job. Crazy. So I was, I think I cried then too, because everything. It's like it happened for a reason, It has to do with fishing, and that's what I love. So I jumped on that, of course. I lost my house, obviously, took a huge pay cut, lost my house, which is what it is. But I bought an RV, and now I live in an RV halfway between Ozello and my job in Tarpon Springs, and I can move it anytime I want. And,
So that's I think it's an awesome way to live. Like
I'm liking it a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah. Are you finding there's like a community in these RV parks, or is it harder down here because? Is it harder down here because of people come down seasonally, or?
Well, with the RV park that I'm in, I really don't talk to a whole lot of people there. It's a lot of older people, it's the snowbirds and stuff like that. There are some yearly people, but
From billion-dollar ad budgets and arena naming rights to tens of thousands of retail locations, big wireless providers spend big to appear like they're your only option. How do they afford it all? That big bill you get at the end of every month. Mint Mobile had a different idea. Instead of brick and mortar overhead, Mint Mobile is online only. What does that mean for you? A whole lot of savings, because wireless plans from Mint Mobile start at just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You'll save enough that you can get a brand new rod and reel for the upcoming season. For anyone who just hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan, and you can even keep your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. By going online only and eliminating traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes significant savings on to you. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That's mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
It's kind of like I'm an outsider there. But I don't care, because honestly, I'm not that sociable when I'm at home. That's like my downtime. That's when I want to relax and, go inside and flop down and, whatever. But it's I don't know. I like it.
Does it feel like you're on vacation all the time?
No.
Okay.
No, unfortunately, because you still have bills, you still got to pay.
Right.
It's luckily they're just cheaper than having a big house and all that. So it's good. It's working out, so I can't complain.
Yeah, that's the important thing. So I'm trying to think of what we talked about, because we were talking still while we were eating. Anyway, so I probably should have just kept recording. But so you're fairly new getting into the guiding thing, but you have had several trips already.
Yeah.
And how's everything going so far?
So far, so good. All the trips have been successful. Clients have been happy, so that's all that matters to me. My first trip was with a charter captain out of Chesapeake Bay, Pete Dahlberg, also known as Walleye Pete.
Chesapeake Bay?
Maryland?
Yeah, it's somewhere up there. Okay.
Yeah. It's up there where it's cold.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cold. Yeah. Well, he was down here fishing with a bunch of guides all across the Nature Coast, because he's going to come down here and charter clients that come down here from where he's at. He's not coming down to take business from everybody else. He's bringing his own clients with him.
Okay.
And he's actually recommended some of them to me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
you must have impressed him on this first trip.
I hope so. It seems like it. He messaged me a week or so ago, and he's getting ready to make his announcement about how he's going to be chartering down here like in March and April, and asked if it was okay if he, did a little piece on me in his article, and of course I said yes. So it's great, because it's just great.
Yeah. It seems like everything just kind of all has come together. I mean, working with the kayak company and getting to borrow kayaks for your trips and things like that.
Well, I got I've had my kayak. I didn't bring it today. I have my kayak that I bought just over 3 years ago. I didn't start working with him until this past February. So
so you've had that for a while.
So I've got that one, and then he had a trolling motor put on one at the office for me. So then I've got that one, which I'll probably use personally when I'm guiding.
Right.
It's easier to get back and forth, or catch up with the client or whatever, help them out, whatever I need to do. And it'll be great on those long trips, those, like I said, 3 miles just to get where I want to fish or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I'm purchasing another one from him, because I'm not going to take out any more than 2 people at a time.
Right.
You know,
It's a lot
unless it's just like a sightseeing trip.
Right.
The dancing was awesome.
But to keep up with any more than
I'm gonna
2
head
people
down, yeah.
fishing off of kayaks, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Talk about that process. Like, I imagine it's got to be challenging. I've only gone out kayak fishing really one time with a guide, and it was out in La Jolla in the Pacific Ocean, which was crazy. We were fishing for halibut.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And
See, that's the dream of mine, is to go out offshore on my kayak.
Dana didn't enjoy it.
I'm excited. I want to do it so bad.
Yeah. But I remember thinking, like, how challenging it must be, especially if you're guiding somebody who's not already an experienced kayak angler.
Right.
Because you're not right there. You can't, you know, like when you're fishing out of a boat, you can kind of coach them a little
Right.
bit more.
Well, you know, before we go out, I always find out if they've ever been on a kayak. You know, if not, they get a lesson. I'm not going to just, okay, let's go. You know, if
Yeah.
I teach them the little safety procedures or whatnot, and you know, give them some advice and tips, and more will come up throughout the day. And I never go that far away from them. You know, if something does happen, I don't want to be a mile up the river.
Right.
Thank
Just
you.
some change on the river. Oh, thank you very much. You guys have a wonderful weekend, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
But
that'd be good.
yeah, so you know, I hang out, and it's funny because when I first get out there, I usually don't. I won't start fishing right away. I just kind of hang out. And almost every trip that I've had, they're like, "You are gonna fish, right?" Okay, yeah. So, you know, it's just wanting to make sure that they have a great time. But if they want me to fish, I'm not gonna argue.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, okay.
Uh-huh.
Have you had any kind of dangerous situations or?
Yeah. Well, other than, let's see, my ex and I were in Yankeetown, and a gust front come in, and he insisted on checking the radar. I knew it was time to get off the water, so we were only a quarter mile from the launch. I'm like, come on, we gotta go. And so, like I said, he had to pull up his phone and check the radar, and he lost his phone that trip.
Oh no.
Yeah, he had to get a new one because he was flipped. I made it to shore. He didn't, but I swear the winds were like 60 miles an hour. I'm standing next to the truck cowering down trying to keep the sand, because it was a tiny little beach area, you know, trying to stay out of the sandstorm and trying to watch him. And it's like at one point I didn't see him, and I'm like, where did he go, you know? And so it's like I'm looking up and then having to hide, looking up again, trying to find him. And then I see his kayak just flopping around, and I'm like, oh my gosh. You know, I knew there was nothing I could do.
Right.
Just stand there and wait. But luckily he was on the other side of it. He was hanging on. But that was very scary. And then he used to keep me out there in lightning storms. I've been in way more lightning storms than I like to admit. In Crystal River, a little over a year ago, I was about a quarter mile from the launch. It's always when I'm right there, you know, which you'd think is a good thing.
Right.
But, I was standing on an oyster bed, and I hooked into a huge snook, probably the biggest one I've ever hooked into. And then I lost it, so now I'm like, oh my gosh. And I look around, and there's snook just swimming around my feet. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, so I'm trying to catch them. Well, there was a storm that I had been watching, and it was going over, you know, up on land, or so I thought. All of a sudden I look up, and it's coming right at me, and there's a lot of lightning in it, so I'm like, okay, let me go. So I started paddling back in. A pontoon boat comes up about 50 feet from me, and he's like, hey, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm just trying to get to, you know, shore before the storm gets here. He's like, okay, and he takes off, and I'm like, well, maybe I should have said no.
Yeah, no, I'm not okay.
Right. So my option was to go to the boat ramp, which was right in front of me. Unfortunately, my truck was like a mile away from that boat ramp, and I didn't want to leave my kayak sit there with all these people walking around.
Right.
You know, don't want to come back and not have it. So I decided I would go around to the launch that I launched at. Unfortunately, when I got around there was no water. The tide had gone out. I didn't know it was going to be like that. That was the first time I'd ever launched there. So I'm a good 50 yards from the launch, and I have to make the decision to either go back to the boat ramp or try to make it. I've trudged through the mud before. Stuff like that doesn't bother me. I know how to do it. So I step out, and I'm like knee deep in mud. I'm like, okay, I got this. Because I just wanted off the water. The storm was huge, and the lightning was just everywhere, and it kept getting closer. So I kept walking, and then before I knew it, I was thigh high in mud, trying to drag my kayak through mud. And it was too late to turn around. You know, I was already that deep. I just kept trying to go. And I'm literally, the launch is right next to the road. People are driving by. It's dark out now. I've got my headlamp on, so I know people can see the light just going this way and that way, but nobody stopped. So I'm like, okay, I got this. And I would take a few steps. I'd get to the nose of my kayak. I would pull it once, pull it twice, and then pull it again, you know, to get it up there. And every time I did that third pull, it would aim a different direction, and I'd have to pull it back towards me. So I did that for a little while. I got about 10 feet. And then I was just totally exhausted. And, you know, there was a little point with a mangrove bush on it. And I got close enough. I had a rope on the front of my kayak, so I left the kayak and just grabbed the rope, and I was going to tie the kayak to that mangrove bush. But when I got to it, I grabbed it, and it wasn't even attached to anything. I was like, oh my gosh. And then the lightning, it was just right there. It was right there. It was all around me. It's like cracking everywhere, and I had my hat on, so I refused to look up, but it's bright, you know. You can't not notice it.
Wow.
It's so I ended up just, stupid me, didn't drop the anchor or anything, but I just left my kayak there and crawled on my elbows and my knees through the mud until, 20 more feet until I could get to the launch. And I just laid there. I was so tired. And my phone, I grabbed my keys and my phone off the kayak, and I crawled up to the shore. My phone ended up in the mud every time I crawled. But I got up there and I cleaned it out real good, and it still worked. So I got in touch with my friend David, Captain Irish Dave. He's my best friend. He didn't save my life, but he saved my kayak's life, so it's kind of the same thing. But I called him, or I messaged him. I'm like, please help me, and he was there just like that. And he walked right out there, got my kayak, brought it back up, and that's, I think I handled it all pretty well until he got there, and then I just lost it. I was like, I cannot believe all this just happened to me. That was probably more scary than the gust front because of the lightning. It was ridiculous. It was just massive.
Where it's going to hit.
Right. Well, there was one strike that hit in the road when I made it to the hard ground at the launch, which literally your first step in, you're this deep in mud, almost up to your thighs. When I made it to the hard ground, and I just laid there. You know how you see it on TV, people kissing the ground? That was me. Okay, I did. I was so happy to be on hard ground because I honestly don't even like being in the water. Crabs and pinchy stuff or pokey stuff, stingrays.
Things you don't even know.
Yeah, so all I could think is while I'm that deep in mud is there's going to be a crab down there. It's just going to get my toes. I don't even know how I kept my shoes on. I didn't lose my shoes or anything.
Wow.
I know.
That is impressive.
But it was scary. It was really scary.
I can't imagine, even regardless of there being a lightning storm threat, is being that deep in mud. I'd be freaking out. Yeah,
I'm a small girl. I'm not real heavy. I think that if I was much heavier, I'd have probably sank a little further because it wasn't hard ground that I was standing on. It's just that was as far as I was sinking. And then I would hold on to the kayak to help keep myself up as best as I could. But yeah, that was probably the most scary event I've ever had out on the water.
That's a thing when those types of situations happen. You're reminded of how powerful nature is. Yeah. It makes you appreciate it a lot better, and it also teaches you lessons. You watch for things a little bit better, and you don't push. Well, I would like to say you don't push yourself. If you're surrounded by snook to keep but that's kind of a lie. Yeah, that would be. That would be a hard situation to walk away from.
Yeah, it is. Because honestly, I fished for a good 10 years before I ever caught, no, I think it was 11 years before I ever caught my first snook. I used to tell my ex, I'm like, I think they're mythical, dude. I really don't believe they exist, because he would talk about them, but we had a freeze. They weren't around for the longest time, and so we were never catching them. The first one I ever saw, he caught in Yankeetown. It was like a 35-inch snook.
Nice.
And then the next weekend he caught a 40. I'm like, okay, so they're not mythical. Why can't I catch them? You know.
Yep.
But yeah, they are awesome to catch. But redfish are still my favorite.
Yeah, those are your favorite of all.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love redfish.
Yeah, I've gotten to catch a couple here in the last couple months, and they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty,
Well, I
love the spots on their tails.
Well, I like the variety of colors that they'll get, you know, depending on where you catch them at. If you catch them in the, you know, muddy backwaters, they're going to be a lot more dark brown or bronze or orange or, you know, have more color to them. But if you catch them like out on the sandy beach area, they're going to be almost white or silver. You know, the color scheme is just so different. But, yeah.
It's very pretty fish.
Yeah.
So what's next? What do you foresee in your future? Just more guiding and
actually, I had talked to a lady, Susan Bogart, actually contacted me and asked me to do a women's fishing clinic to help teach women how to fish.
Awesome.
I'm like, you know, wondering if I'm going to be able to do it, but
you will totally be able to do it.
Well, I get really nervous. I mean, I don't know if you can tell.
Well, we can go through this together because I'm doing my first seminars ever. I'm not a public speaker.
Right.
I've hated public speaking.
Me too.
And I'm doing seminars at the Nashville Boat Show this January.
That is so funny that you say that, because the other morning I wake up to a gentleman messaging me and asked if I would be interested in speaking at his club meeting, monthly meeting, about kayak fishing. And I know how I am. I know I'm, you know, not a public speaker. I get very nervous, whatever. But I said yes. You know, it's like if I don't push myself to do it, I'm just going to be that little
100%
nobody sitting over in the corner, you know, the wallflower. And I just really don't want to be that, you know.
That's the same attitude I've had. It's like, you got to commit, because if you don't commit, you're not going to do it.
Exactly.
Ever. I'm already terrified thinking about speaking in front of the Nashville Boat Show, and like, are there people that are going to be there? I'm not an expert, you know, but I'll show you what I know, and hopefully that will help you, you know, because I'm thinking it's going to be a lot of not very experienced people that love to boat, but not necessarily fish.
Right.
And so we're going to keep it really entry level and stuff that I'm confident enough to be able to like show somebody how to do.
That's how I'm going to do the women's fishing clinic, but it's not so much because it's because that's how I fish. I am simple. I keep it simple. There's no need, in my opinion, there's no need to get so technical, because it's confusing, especially if you're just starting off. So I'm going to teach them the basics of what I do and how I do it. And
where is that going to be held? Do you know?
She was talking about at River Safaris in Homosassa.
Awesome.
So,
we went there yesterday. Amazing place. Got to see the gators out back. Got to see all the different boats they have. And
I haven't been there.
Boats.
I have hardly ever actually been down to Homosassa.
It's an awesome area. Yeah.
I've been there a few times.
But, so they do the manatee tours.
David does those.
Yeah.
I was telling you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So.
I wonder if he was there yesterday.
They were doing a photo shoot on the water photo shoot.
Yeah, we were there in the morning, so we didn't get to see the photo shoot. But Susan was maybe going to get us out on an airboat this afternoon, but they've got maintenance stuff they got to do.
Yeah.
So it's not going to work out this time around.
Well, I tried to get David to come here. I was like, David, I'm so nervous. Please just go with me. He's like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I've got stuff to do. And I'm like, And so, you know, that's where I said I just push myself to do the stuff that I'm afraid, so to speak, to do.
Yep.
And
that's me too. Now, once I do it, you know, hopefully it will be...
You go home and you're like, I did it!
Yeah, you get that rush.
Yeah.
I kind of do that with podcast interviews. I mean, I get nervous doing podcast interviews.
Yeah.
I'm like, am I going to sound stupid, or am I going to ask the
That
wrong
was me all morning.
questions?
I am telling you, I was sweating. I'm like, oh, why did I agree to this?
Let's just cancel. Let's just cancel.
Nope. I refuse to let myself cancel stuff like that.
I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
because I want to be more than just that little wallflower. I want to, not just for my own personal benefit, just, for my kids, my grandkids, my oldest granddaughter. I have 4 grandbabies.
Oh, wow.
My oldest granddaughter is right before she turned 3 was the first time I took her out on the water on the kayak with me. And, so she's a huge inspiration because she always says, she's got to eat all her food so she can be big and strong like Nana and catch big fish.
Oh, that's awesome.
And but then they moved to Texas, so I don't get to see them very much. But they still, she remembers and she wants to go fishing, and I don't ever want to let her
planted
down.
that seed.
Yeah,
Which is cool.
Yeah. I'm so excited, and now I have her 2 younger brothers, and right now they're 4, 3, and 2 years old. So now, the oldest of the boys, I won't take them before they're 3 years old. They don't sit still. You're on a kayak,
Yeah. They won't remember it probably.
Right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, my forgive the cracked phone, but that's my granddaughter's first trip on my kayak.
Oh, she looks so happy.
I know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've had the picture on there for 2 years now. I can't seem to take it off of there. But, I don't want to let her down. I don't want to let her little bubbas down. They want to come fishing with me and stuff like that. And I'm kind of tired of being pretty much a nobody, so to speak. I've never done anything major in my life, so it's like,
Life is short. Just gotta go for it sometimes.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's kind of how I think of it now. Yeah.
So the women's clinic or seminar or whatever, is that going to be a regular, like a monthly thing?
I have no idea.
Okay. That's really cool.
Yeah, Susan said it was the first time she's ever set one up, so it's my first time ever doing one. But we'll get it. I don't know
awesome
when it's going to happen, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah, sounds like a great thing.
Yeah.
So. Well, cool. Well, we're excited for everything you're doing, and we'll continue to follow you online.
you.
We'll put links to your. Is it Instagram you mostly do, or
mostly Facebook?
Facebook.
Yeah, I can't keep up with everything.
I know. It's too much.
Yeah,
it's way too
yeah.
much.
I know.
It takes too much time. We need to be out there fishing.
Well, like I said, I have my blog page too, and I haven't kept up with it. I don't think I've put a post up since like June or July. But I love to write, and not to toot my own horn, but I am a good writer. I'm a very descriptive writer, and people love it. So I want to get back into that. It's just learning how to manage all my time.
Yep.
I'm not used to all this.
Have you thought about joining the Florida Outdoor Writers Association?
I've thought about doing a couple different things, but until I can figure out how to manage my time, I don't want to put myself out there in anything
This
that
is a really
I'm not
good
going to be
way
able to keep up.
to connect and get. I mean, I joined one that's up in the north part of the country, Association of Great Lake Outdoor Writers, and I'm not really a writer, but I do have the podcast.
Right.
And so, but the connections I got through that has just been incredible. I heard the Florida one's pretty good.
Oh,
so
definitely. I'll look more into that. Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll follow you and your adventures, and I'll definitely be watching for information about the women's clinics and stuff going on down here.
I'm really excited. I have a friend that her and her boyfriend live in St. Pete, and they came. A friend of hers from up north, who is a friend of mine, North Florida, they met in the middle and came fishing with me here in Ozello, and she had never been kayak fishing, and she's fairly new to fishing in general, so, and then she spent several days, up here fishing with me, and so she would sit right next to me, and I would teach her stuff. I told her to empty her entire tackle box because she didn't need anything in it. I don't even know what half of it was. But, I would just give her some tips and advice and stuff like that. And then that's been a little over a year ago. A couple of weeks ago, another mutual friend of ours invited both of us on his boat to fish. And I'm like, honestly, I don't care to fish off of a boat that much. But since she was going to be there and I hadn't seen her, I went. And it was a horrible day, windy as could be. But throughout the day, I just kept hearing, well, Jacinda taught me this, or I learned this from Jacinda. And I was like, did I really teach you all that? I had to ask her, did I really teach you all that?
Yeah.
She's like, oh my gosh, yeah. She's like, I've learned so much from you, So, okay, so maybe I can do this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm excited.
You can do it.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, thanks for meeting us out here
Aw,
today.
thanks for
being
giving
on
me
the
the
show.
opportunity.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's my first time.
I'm glad. I'm glad to be your first podcast. And it wasn't scary.
No, it wasn't. No.
So hopefully you'll be on many more.
Well, I've done the Facebook show, We Be Tailing. They do it out of English with Shasty McNasty Fishing, and I've done that 3 times. Third time was a charm. First time, I don't even know what I was doing there. Second time, I said a little bit, but I was still really, really nervous. And the third time, because I'm in front of a camera.
Right. That's a
I
difference.
learned not to look at the camera a whole lot because that was what was making me nervous. But then it's like halfway through that third show, it was nothing. It was great.
Yeah.
Cool. So.
All right. Well, we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, thanks for listening. Links to everything mentioned in this episode will be in the show notes and on our website at thewomanangler.com/116. Don't forget to go to our Facebook page Friday at 12:30 Central Time to catch our live podcast from the Yamaha booth at the Bassmaster Classic. As always, thanks for listening and for supporting the Woman Angler and Adventurer.